Hi, I'm Judy Zorn, and welcome to Tuesday Talks. My guest today is Stephanie Cope. Stephanie is a violinist in the orchestra, and we're delighted to have her today. Stephanie, how young, that's a good way to put it, isn't it? How young were you when you started playing the violin?
I was 4 when I started playing violin because I had been watching my sister, who started even younger than I did, and I wanted to do what she was doing. So I was 4 years old.
Wow. Well, we're going to move fast forward to college because I'm very interested. I know that you went to the University of Michigan and you were a dance major there.
Yeah.
But interestingly, I know that you were thinking about auditioning with French horn or maybe auditioning with jazz piano, and you ended up a dance major. So please enlighten us. You seem to be a multi-talented musician. Tell us a little bit about how you got into playing.
At Concord Academy, which is an arts integrated charter school, a public school. That when we got into middle school, we all had to pick an instrument. Everybody was required to be in band. And our band teacher recommended that I try French horn because she needed more French horn players. So that's where I started, just through band with French horn. And then some summers I took private lessons at Bayview on the French horn. And I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed violin and I enjoyed French horn. And then at age 8, I learned how to read bass clef. My uncle taught me how to read bass clef. So I kind of taught myself how to play piano and then started taking lessons with Michelle Mitchum. And so through those years, middle school years, I was sort of equal parts violin, French horn, and piano.
Interesting. Wow, that sounds wonderful. And you had some great teachers up here as you were growing up and learning. When you were at Ann Arbor, I know that there was a period where you were starting to get into Irish music. Now, what brought that on?
So, Judy mentioned before that I went to college for dance. As a student at Concord, everybody took dance from kindergarten through 12th grade. That was the reason I decided to pursue it as a major, just because I liked it. And there's a lot of pressure when you're a senior in high school to try to figure out your life and decide your trajectory for the remainder of your existence. And I kind of felt a lot of that pressure, and I didn't like being pressurized so much, so I picked dance kind of as, I don't know if it was rebellion or what, but I knew I loved it, so that was that. But yeah, I took my violin and I took my French horn to school with me, and kind of felt like I had 3 separate personae, and I did join a band for non-majors, like people that are not music majors. I joined that on French horn, but I quit after the first rehearsal because I realized it was like an insane time commitment with my dance rehearsing and all of that. And then with my violin, when my sister and I were young, we were kind of riding the arc of just like holding onto the tail of a balloon that was rising. As long as we didn't let go, we would continue to get better, and we could probably pursue the university education and orchestral career in music, but we both let go of that string. We both quit. We stopped taking private lessons, and everything just came to a halt. So because I hopped off that train, I had to find a re-entry point. I knew I still loved music, and I loved my violin, but I was losing my skill. It's not like if you don't practice, you don't get better. It's if you don't practice, you get worse. So
yes,
I was getting, I was losing all of my skill, and to even think about jumping back into an orchestra setting is like, especially at college, it's a no. You don't do that. you don't just jump right back into orchestra culture if you have popped off.
Right.
So there's a bar in Ann Arbor, there still is, called Connor O'Neill's, and they still have Irish sessions every Sunday, and I knew about that and just went by myself, took my fiddle, and I took a cassette tape recorder and a blank tape, and I asked him if I could record the sessions and put it under my chair and recorded and sat in and, did my best to participate. But there's a lot of unspoken rules, and it's like anytime I got my fiddle out during college to try to play with people, I would kind of get this look like she doesn't really know what she's doing, or she doesn't really know the rules here, does she? It's like, so it was a little bit awkward, but I jumped on it because that was my re-entry point into playing the violin. So yeah, I took the tapes home and memorized the tunes.
Well, and that has really helped, I'm sure, because then after Ann Arbor, you came back to Petoskey, where you were born and raised, and we left for a little while after that, but then ultimately came back to Petoskey for good.
Yeah.
And gradually began playing in the Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra. But I'd like to back up just a little bit, if you don't mind. And as you can tell, as you can see, we are here today at the Crooked Tree Theater. And we're here today because this is a location, a place where the youth orchestra played those many years ago when you were part of the youth orchestra. So Stephanie, we're here today, and Stephanie's going to tell us a little bit about what it was like to be a member of the youth orchestra. In fact, Stephanie, you took lessons from Maggie, who is now Maggie Stewart, Maggie Paxson, who is still a member of the Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra, but you began studying with her at age 4.
Yeah.
And then you were a member of the youth orchestra for a long time, a number of years, and you rehearsed in the basement here at Crooked Tree and performed here on the stage, and we're of course sitting in the house of this beautiful theater. So tell us a little bit about what it was like to be in the youth orchestra.
Yeah, well, so Maggie Paxson had the Suzuki program, which is a lot of ear training, and the youth orchestra now has returned to using the Suzuki as the basis for learning, which is great. It's good ear training. And I remember being on this stage with my sister playing the Bach double violin concerto. So yeah, even though we were involved in the youth orchestra for all those years, what mattered most to me was playing with my sister. Like, I had a vague, fuzzy awareness of like there's a lot of adults around me saying good job. There's other kids here, but for me the focal point was just me and my sister making music together. I've lost a lot of the details over the years because when you're a kid, it's like.
Well, you started at 4.
Yeah.
Didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Were there other young children that age? I'm sure it was a spectrum, a variety of ages.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm putting you on the spot, aren't I? Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. So we did the Suzuki thing, and then somehow we got connected with a wonderful teacher in Cedar, near Traverse City, Dorothy Kunkel. And we took private lessons with her. My mom would drive us either to Elk Rapids, to a central location, or all the way to Cedar, or sometimes Dorothy would come to us every week. And we did that for a long time. It must have been at the same time we were doing youth orchestra stuff, but again, it's a little fuzzy.
Sure.
And then the youth orchestra morphed. If you listen to the talk that you did with Mr. Pattengale, Dr. Pattengale, he talked about how he had a friend who contacted him because he had 2 daughters who wanted a group, and he wanted a group for them to play with. That was my dad and me and my sister Megan. So
interesting.
Yeah, there's a shift that happened when they brought in Carrie Johnson from Kalamazoo, and she really made the orchestra program blossom here for not many years. Like, it was a short period of time, but we loved her. We had a great relationship with her. She's a phenomenal teacher, an amazing talent on the viola and the violin too, and went on to continue teaching with great success after she left here. But it was that time period that was the high point of the orchestra for me, I think.
That's great. It's exciting that it's come full circle. That, you know, you were born and raised here, you're back here, you're raising your family here. You have 3 boys and 2 horses, and
3
you're
horses,
wearing your cowboy boots today. But even more than that, you know, you started from a musical family and had parents who obviously were so committed to having their children learn music and a variety of different music instruments, and committed to driving and taking you to lessons and things like that. So you started with that kind of a foundation and kind of had a journey, and you're back here and you're back in the orchestra, and you have a foundation as a youngster playing violin and French horn. And I think I heard you say that you played French horn in the Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra too.
Yeah. It was last year, I think, one of the Sunday series at the Presbyterian Church in Harbor Springs. It was a piece, I'm going to get in trouble. I don't remember what it was. But they needed 8 French horns.
Right.
So a couple of my friends from the Northern Symphonic Winds, which is a newer ensemble in the area of just wind instruments, that I was playing in for a while, we got to join up with the horns from the orchestra, and that was super fun.
That's nice. It's an amazing foundation to have as a youngster, to have the private lessons that you did, and then also have, although it's a little fuzzy now, and I am putting you on the spot. I'm
okay.
Sorry.
I did think about this beforehand, but it's gone.
You were just doing it, as so often we do as youngsters.
Yeah.
We're just doing it, you know.
Yeah.
But now you're back, and it's wonderful to have you back. Meanwhile, I know for a while you were music director at Zion Lutheran Church, and in fact, you started a program, I believe called For the Love of Music.
Yeah. After I got married to my husband, Dave Pugh, who was the music director at the time of Zion, called me and said, we need an organist, or we need a piano player, an accompanist of some sort tomorrow. Are you available? And so I said yes, and ever since then I've had a great relationship with Zion. I had a baby last year, so I'm not full-time playing for Zion on Sundays, but up until I had my 3rd kid, I was working. That was my main gig. And yeah, I started a concert series called For the Love of Music because Zion didn't have a choir. We tried, but it was low in numbers, so that fizzled out. No handbells like many churches do, and the congregation really wanted more music. And so I came up with the idea to have a collage-style concert series every month, where I reached out to musicians in the community of all different styles and gave them 20 minutes or so of the program, and they all got paid. I wanted them all to get paid well, and they all got to see or hear the other musicians perform, because that's something that gigging musicians don't always have the luxury of doing, because they're working their butts off.
That's right. Exactly.
You know, they don't get to go to other people's stuff.
Isn't it amazing how many musicians are up here and how good they are?
Yeah, it was just really fun, rewarding experience, getting to develop collaborations through that series. It's really cool.
And now, are you still part of, is it a trio, Boundary Water?
Yeah, well, of course, since the pandemic hit, we haven't been able to rehearse, but yeah, I met Bill Wilson, who's a fingerstyle guitarist, through that concert series, and then we got playing together and realized that we liked the sound of what we were able to create with the fiddle and the fingerstyle guitar, and I was thinking back to my dance days at Concord, where one of my teachers, Gary Shills, always drummed for our dance classes. He was a dance teacher, and he always drummed on his conga. So I said to Bill, I think I know a drummer who would complement this duet that we have going. And so yeah, the three of us write our own music. It's all instrumental, folky stuff. And if we had our choice, we'd love to be commissioned to write music for a nature documentary. But
That is interesting, a nature documentary.
Yeah, most of our music is
Love it.
inspired by the natural world. And
Well, and of course, that's why you have 3 horses and,
Yeah.
and live a little bit outside of town,
Yeah.
don't you? Yes, exactly. So we're just so delighted to have you back at the orchestra, and
Thanks.
and I'm hoping that that's been an enjoyable time for you, and
Yeah.
and we do a variety of music, certainly not folk-inspired music, maybe not all
yet.
the time.
Not yet. Libor did go to Scotland, and I think he's learning fiddle tunes in his spare time.
Yes, that's right. His sabbatical last year was in Scotland learning. You're right,
Yeah.
learning folk music. You're absolutely right. So that's probably on the horizon.
Yeah.
You're right about that. So just stay tuned. You'll probably have a solo or something like that. I'm sure. Well, it's you have an amazing eclectic musical background. And what does that do for you? And even in times that we're in right now, music, it speaks to your soul, doesn't it?
Yeah. It has been hard, especially starting a family and having young kids, and thinking about lives other than my own,
Right.
I've got my husband's life, and my 3 kids each have their own life. So as I've made decisions on what to participate in musically, I've had to really weigh the value of it with what I'm not willing to sacrifice in my family life. And that's why I ended up not playing in Northern Symphonic Winds on my French horn, because it's just too much of a time commitment. And that's how I ended up focusing on the violin, because I can stand up. The kids can't reach my violin. They can't tinkle on the keys while I'm trying to practice. It's sort of like I've got my own little personal bubble. So it fits with my life right now.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for being
Thank
a
you.
guest today on Tuesday Talks. And, as we sit here in the Coquetry Theater, it's, of course, very quiet. And as you can see, Stephanie and I are the only 2 people sitting in the audience. So we look forward to the time soon when everything opens up, and in a safe way, of course, and we'll be able to perform you with the orchestra or Boundary Water, and we're just looking so forward to being with everybody again very soon in live performance. So once again, Stephanie, thank you so much for
Thanks,
being
Jeannie.
a guest on Tuesday Talks, and thank you for joining us